All right. Well, hello. Welcome back into my kitchen. Today we are going to be using up some of my leftover turkey. Gonna do turkey tetrazzini. It's really not a complicated recipe. God, my camera looks awful today. Um, Conceptually, all it is mushrooms, onions, maybe some peas. I'm not using peas, but you can. Cheese and cream mixed with pasta and then baked. So we'll take it easy. I posted a recipe on the Discord. I'm doing a half batch ish of the recipe. I don't really need that much of everything. We're going to start easy way. Water on the pan. Because this is a pasta dish. And as I said before, this is 8 ounces of pasta. Not too complicated. I'll pull the shape of pasta I'm using out of the the cabinet in a minute. Did it finally? Look, sometimes it works, okay? The shape I am using, I can't even pronounce. Think of it as an extra wide linguine noodle. Traditionally, you would use spaghetti. I'm apparently out of spaghetti noodles. I don't know how, but I am. Um, Really, it's pretty simple. I have a pound of mushrooms. We're going to cut them up. Um, and then we're going to saute them. And then we're going to add some onions and saute those. I always use a lot of mushrooms because I live not that far from what was historically the mushroom capital of the world. So mushrooms are always really cheap here. If you're in a place that mushrooms are expensive, you might want to use less. I'm going to wash all the 1 pound of these. I just do it under running water. There are people who tell you that's bad. They have nothing to do with their lives. And all kinds of free time to yell at me on how I clean my mushrooms. Give myself a bowl to put the completed ones into. As I said before, we're just going to kind of slice these. The other important thing you're going to want to think about when you're doing this is going with your chicken or turkey. So cut them all the same size. Like, that sounds really basic and like cooking 101, but it's probably the most important piece. You can see how fresh these mushrooms are. Let me focus, please, camera. You see how tight the inner pieces to the gills there? That means they're really fresh. As they get older, that'll open up. If you're using it in like a soup or a dish like this, it really doesn't matter. If you're using it in something where you want them to actually be fresh mushrooms, people like the appeal of the new ones. I think the slightly older ones taste better. Obviously not moldy, but like less new. Also, oftentimes you see those as like discount mushrooms. So they have more flavor and they're cheaper. The other thing to remember with mushrooms is they shrink a ton. So like I'm going to fill this bowl here with mushrooms. And there's not going to be a lot of mushrooms at the end. It's just life. And again, this is an entire pound of mushrooms. As I throw them off the table. And this is like week 1 of 2 of mushroom dishes, because I got a recipe for a mushroom stew that looks really good that I'm going to make next week. It starts with 4 pounds of mushrooms. So it's going to be interesting. Also, most of a bottle of red wine. Oh, darn. My wine to drink with this dish is sitting out on my balcony, getting cold. Okay. 1 pound of mushrooms. Gonna throw a little bit of butter in the frying pan. I'm actually gonna switch the cameras because as soon as you start doing stuff in the oven, on the stove, it's more fun to watch it. And then we're going to go and quickly dice up some shallots. So let's do this. We're going to throw some oil in that pan, and then we're going to throw in all of our mushrooms. So I said 1 full pound. As those cook, we'll start with a couple shallots here. I'm also watching, not that you can really tell, once our water gets to boiling, I'm going to put the pasta in. Our pasta takes 7 minutes. This one is a recipe I want to be extra careful and make sure that I don't cook it more than al dente, because it gets baked in the oven in the end. And if you cook it too much now, it's going to be like a pile of mush later. Yeah, overcooked pasta sucks. Gonna poke at those a little more. You notice I'm going to mince fairly finely these shallots. I actually want them to kind of melt and disappear in the dish. Our mushrooms, these are shallots. Think of them like a very mild onion. They're in the same family. Yeah, in this case, I'm just using the bulb part. And actually, I don't know if you can hear it or you can kind of see it. The mushrooms moved from sizzling to kind of bubbling because all of a sudden they got hot enough and released all their water. That's good. Again, especially in a baked dish, at the end of the day, we have to watch our water value. If there's too much water, you don't get a good casserole. If there's too little water, it's hard as a rock. Mushrooms are actually super good at absorbing liquid later. So by getting all the water out of them to start, you kind of have this buffer where they will absorb some extra, but not all the extra. Also, it super concentrates the mushroom flavor, so they taste like mushroom. I'll move the microphone over. This is just kind of the be patient time, because you want your mushrooms to cook. Seriously, hurry up, stare at them. You can kind of see it. The liquid in the pan is turning darker and darker brown. That's, again, the mushrooms releasing the mushroom juice, which we want to boil off all the water part of it, leaving behind the flavor part, which will then get reabsorbed by the mushrooms as we build the sauce. Our liquid is probably 2/3 gone right now. I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to push these towards the edges and drop our shallots in the middle. The shallots will also release a little liquid, which is fine. Give them a minute, and then add our garlic. And as soon as I throw the shallots in, I'll have space on the cutting board to cut up my chicken. Turkey, not chicken. I make this with chicken all the time. This is leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. It's a great use for something that you would otherwise get tired of. And we're actually going to make this dish to a point where I can freeze it, because I'm going to put this away in the freezer for when I'm less tired of turkey. And in go our shallots. We're going to cook these for a couple minutes. They're going to turn translucent. If you've never cooked with them before, they behave almost identically to onions. Flavor profile is different, but everything else is the same. And my turkey, it's going to be about 50-50 light and dark meat. I like both. If you like one over the other, pick one over the other. Eat a piece, yep. Still tastes like turkey. Okay, stir these shallots in now. They've had their minute in the sun. Full spoonful of garlic. Again, we're now going to give this about 60 seconds to cook the garlic, and I'm going to turn the heat off. Water in the other pan in the pot is almost there. Give this a couple seconds to cool off so I can easily handle it. We're going to take this all out of the pan. Then we are going to start working on making the Tetrazzini sauce. You can do it all at once, but it's kind of a pain because you're putting flour in. You're trying to make sure you don't make it lumpy. It's just easier without stuff in the pan. So we're going to use that same pan dish that was overfilling before with mushrooms. I'm going to toss this in there, and remember, we added stuff to this. And well, I'm going with there's half as much, even after adding in the shallots and the garlic. I have no idea. And I don't think it's particularly Italian. I'm pretty sure this is absolutely an American dish through and through. But people like to act like it's Italian. So what I'm going to do now is get my flour ready. So I'm going to put like 2 tablespoons of flour into a small bowl so I have it separated. Throw a couple tablespoons of butter in the pan, and we're going to melt the butter, stir the flour, and then we'll start adding broth. We're going to add about a cup of chicken broth and a cup to a cup and a half of half and half. I do this beforehand to make sure there's no giant lumps in my flour. I'm going to measure out my chicken broth beforehand so I know how much I'm using of the pot. If you've noticed, so far I haven't used any of my salt. The reason for that is I want to wait for the very end to salt the dish. As for example, my chicken broth is not salt-free. I want to add enough, but not too much. It's about 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to melt this. I'm going to keep the heat pretty low for this piece. This is no longer like a rushing game. Our pasta water is boiling. I'm going to be adding 8 ounces of pasta noodles, and it is 6 to 7 minutes for al dente, so I'm going to set my timer for 6. Because again, we really don't want to over do it. We're going to cook our flour. Cooking the flour doesn't do much difference in terms of like how much liquid the flour will bind to make a gravy. It absolutely impacts the taste. If you don't cook your flour, it's going to taste like raw flour in the final product. And by the way, raw flour tastes gross. Cookie dough ice cream is like pure sugar. There's no flour. So you can see it's foaming a little bit. That's good. That's flour cooking against a little bit of liquid that's already present in butter. I'm going to start adding my chicken stock a little at a time. I'm actually going to add a splash of white wine here. If you don't like the taste of wine, you probably shouldn't add it because this will impact the taste of our final dish. Continue to add our chicken stock. Our goal here is to make sure that we don't have giant lumps everywhere. Remember, you can always add too much liquid because just boiling it on the stove will take it down over time. I am going to stir my noodles. I don't trust that they won't get stuck on that pot. So again, as I said before, cup of chicken stock, cup to a cup and a half of half and half. Then we're going to start adding our ingredients back in, and we're going to want to look for this to be kind of saucy. So like you think of a casserole as something that's got like a firm texture, no like loose liquid in the bottom. That's not where we want this to be when we put it in the oven. We want the oven to do that for us. Okay, as you can see, this is kind of, all this is flour, chicken stock, and butter. We're going to start adding in our cream. There's two ways you could do this. You could do a combination of heavy cream and whole milk. Conveniently enough, I use half and half for my coffee. If you didn't know, half and half is 50% heavy cream, 50% fat-free milk. Once we get all of our heavy cream in, or our half and half in, we're going to get this up to a simmer. It's going to sit at a simmer for 2 or 3 minutes. It should get nice and thick. We'll then add our chicken, and then our mushrooms, some cheese, because how could this be Italian cooking without cheese? And then our pasta. So when our timer beeps on the pasta here, I'm going to take it, I'm just going to drain it and put it in the sink to sit and drain and cool. That's fine. So I'm just going to do it right now. That's hot. I know hot things are hot news at 11. I really do like those dishes that let you just, pull out and separate the pasta without having to, do work. If I really wanted, I could go right back right now and make a second batch of pasta. So as you can see, this is very liquidy at the moment. We're going to need to give this a minute or two to get up to temperature, and then it will start simmering and it will thicken rapidly. Flour has this interesting behavior where it doesn't achieve maximum thickening until it gets to a boil, as opposed to cornstarch where once you get it thick, it's where it is. So you can see this is, maybe you can't see. I can never tell how good the camera is. It is just starting to steam, which means it's getting close to a simmer. We're going to get it up to a simmer, and what I'm going to look for is when I put the back of the spoon on it, and I go like this. Actually, it's not too bad. Your goal is you want it to stick to your spoon, but right now it's not. There's not like a solid layer. It's still dripping off pretty fast. I want it a little thicker. While we're in these last couple minutes, I'm going to add a couple of my aromatics. So, our black pepper, we're going to call what I've put in here half a teaspoon. I don't really measure these things, I'm bad at that. Throw in a pinch of oregano. We're going to throw in a pinch of thyme. If I can find the thyme, I'll throw in thyme. Maybe I won't be adding thyme this time. It's okay. We're really close to that simmer. In fact, you can kind of hear it as my spoon runs along the bottom. It's actually thickening really fast right now, which is pretty awesome. You can actually see when I drag the spoon half the time, you can see that really nice line. That's a sign that my sauce is nice and thick, about where I want it. So we're going to add our chicken, and then add our mushrooms and onions back in. Chicken first, not for any reason other than it was in the refrigerator last, so it's cold. So by doing this, I give it a little extra time to heat up. Especially if you were going to cook this immediately, this is very important. We're also going to add cheese. Give or take 3/4 of a cup of cheese. That's Parmesan. That also helps give it a little bit of texture, thickness to the sauce. Right now, if you like peas, you would add about a cup of frozen peas. I'm adding as many peas as I like. There, I did it. After we add our peas, we're going to add in our mushrooms and shallots. As you can see, this is really turning into a proper pasta sauce right now. Looks good. Now this is less hot. We're going to stir in our pasta. Again, this is 8 ounces of noodles. Now our goal is going to be to break the noodles up a little bit, get them separated, use that sauce that we have tons and tons of sauce so that every noodle gets covered. Like a proper casserole, you're going to be eating this with a fork, you're not going to be pulling out long noodles. Just by the nature of casserole dishes, they tend to break up. And now we're going to turn off the heat. I'm going to move the microphone back. And I'm going to switch the camera. All right, so you can see me again. More importantly, you can see this. So I'm going to talk you through what the next steps would be if you were cooking this, immediately. I'm not cooking this immediately, so I'll be doing some of those. No matter what, you're going to want to get some oven-safe dishes. In my case, I use these beautiful glass IKEA dishes. They're like, if I fill them to the brim and cook them, it's 2 servings, 2 meals. It's great. So either me and someone or me and leftovers. I'm going to grab my pot. I'm going to attempt to get some in each. Here's your problem with noodles. That's actually not too bad. Okay, so gonna grab a spoon to kind of flatten this out. You'll notice this would be a little saucy and thick and not coagulated enough for a proper casserole dish, that's fine, because there's baking still. So if I was baking these right now for consumption in about 20 minutes, I would mix shredded Parmesan and panko breadcrumbs 1-to-1, so equal quantities of both, and sprinkle them over the top. Bake it 350 for about 20 minutes. Your goal is to get them to start to brown a pinch on the top. If it doesn't brown fast enough, turn the heat up just a little bit. It's not an exact science. Remember, everything is cooked at this point. It's just you want to brown the panko. Because I'm going to eat these later, I'm going to freeze them as is. And then when I go to cook them for real, I'll put them in the fridge overnight to thaw, and then cover them with the panko and Parmesan right before baking. I found that if you freeze panko breadcrumbs, it becomes panko sog crumbs on top of the dish, and no one likes soggy breadcrumbs. It's gross. But that's it. We've got food, and this is a use of turkey that was left over, so this puts it into a dish in the future. Hopefully you enjoyed. Next week, I've already determined the recipe. We are doing a mushroom stew over polenta, which is going to be fun and interesting. It involves most of a bottle of wine. So I hope to see you 5:30 Eastern time, whatever time that is for you, next Sunday. And have a wonderful evening.